Hey guys, it's Steven here on Monday, the day after Manchester City beat Huddersfield 3-0, an important game in the title race. So back to 4 points behind Liverpool now in a title race that keeps ebbing and flowing constantly. We are keeping track of them, and it was a decent performance in the end. Not our best performance, but it was one that had a few subplots anyway to talk about. And today I'm going to try and run through 5 of the key talking points for Manchester City's 3-0 victory over Huddersfield. Don't forget as well, if you are new to this channel, why not subscribe while you're here? And give this video a like as well if you like this kind of content. And also don't forget to check out match reaction video from yesterday where I dissected the game in a lot more detail than I usually do. It's a new format, so let me know if you like that format, and I'll try and keep the ideas fresh over the coming weeks. But anyway, let's get on to today's 5 things learned from Manchester City's 3-0 win over Huddersfield. Firstly, I want to talk about Leroy Sane. Now, it's no surprise to everyone that Leroy Sane is a fantastically good player, but the stats to me are really, really exciting. Now, I'm just going to look at this as a reference. In 53 Premier League appearances last season, he's been involved in 42 goals. That's 18 goals and 24 assists. He's averaging a direct goal involvement every 87 minutes at the moment. That is phenomenal. And yesterday, he was absolutely incredible. Now, how much more can we say about Leroy Sane other than that his ceiling limit, his potential is absolutely frightening. The most exciting thing for me is that he's currently assisting better than any other winger in the history of the Premier League at a faster rate. He's creating more goals, he's scoring more goals. He's just a very dangerous player. And how long is it before we can start talking about him in the same bracket as the likes of Eden Hazard and all that lot? People that are held up on this high level. For me, Sane is very dangerous. He creates just as much, he scores just as much, and his ceiling limit, it's just the very high end of the game. We're talking about someone who could be potentially a Ballon d'Or winner here. We're consistently seeing him find these new ways to improve his game. His overall control and focus, in my opinion, looks better this season than he did last year, despite his brilliance. I think we're seeing him more switched on and more willing to win the game on his own, be it a great run, a great cross, or general his desire to track back. That's at a different level to last season. Definitely, he's winning the ball back a lot more now, a lot more responsible for his mistakes, and he's developing into his own skin as a Manchester City player and as a Guardiola winger a lot better. You've only got to look at his stats compared to Hazard, for example. 8 goals and 9 assists in the Premier League this season. Eden Hazard has 10 and 10. So essentially, he's like 3 behind, but Sane's played 499 minutes less than Hazard. Basically, he's absolutely battering him on terms of output. And I think in general, he's almost a little bit underappreciated despite his brilliance. We're witnessing someone here who goes to the very high end of the game. And after the era of dominance of Ronaldo and Messi in terms of Ballon d'Ors, why can't Leroy Sane be the kind of person who ends up scoring 25, 30 goals a season and set up bringing another 15, 20, and essentially just sweeping up the awards? I think he honestly has that level in him. He just has to put it down to himself to find that consistency, find that desire to score more and create more. His goal yesterday and the one earlier in the season where he started to defend down his arse, they were telling, in my opinion, of his growing confidence in front of a goal, his growing arrogance. He's the kind of player that thrives off that ego. And to me, Sane, he's going to the top. Another point that we want to talk about is this squad depth that we've got. It's really, really good. Now, you've got to look at the bench yesterday. There was no Mahrez, no Mendy, who's soon to be back soon, no Zinchenko, no Vincent Kompany. Basically 4 players that would start for most teams in the Premier League. 3 that probably definitely would, and 4, Zinchenko, maybe another. And that's generally a sign of things to come for Manchester City. Now, the challenge Guardiola's got is keeping this team happy. Obviously, Mahrez wasn't involved yesterday, and we'll get onto that in a little bit. But then we've got the likes of Mendy, who will soon be back, so we'll be seeing someone else drop off that bench as Danilo drops back into the bench or Walker drops back onto the bench. And we're going to see a bit of a logjam of players all vying to get games. Now, this is obviously a good thing for Manchester City in terms of our squad depth and in terms of overall fitness. But what I'm suspecting to see is a lot of rotation towards the end of the season. Now, there may be injuries. There may definitely be injuries. That always happens for us anyway. We get a few players back and a few more drop out, and that's just football as a whole. But if we do keep everyone fit, there is potentially a problem with rotation. The rotation can be really good for keeping players fresh. We can also sometimes overcomplicate things. You can create a lack of cohesion and chemistry between players, and sometimes some players, some more than others, in particular, I think someone like Aguero, they need a run of games to get to their sharpest. I think John Stones as well, to an extent, is the kind of person who seems to play better when he's had 5 or 6 games in a row. But that may be harder to come by as Manchester City really look to use their full strength for their squad and rotate players and give them games and so on. It's very good to have this huge, strong squad, but somebody's going to give somewhere. And our biggest concern is that maybe by having all these players, we could all be diluting their potential form given a run of games. I mean, it's a nice problem to have, but there are also potential downsides to this. We've already seen Kompany on the bench, Mahrez yesterday, obviously 2 players that would walk into most teams. It's a good problem and also could be a bad problem. Essentially, I wanted to raise that potential of a side to it. The third thing for me is Mahrez not being in the squad altogether. This is a man that we spent extortionate amount of money on, and he couldn't even make the bench yesterday for tactical reasons. He was behind Phil Foden in the pecking order yesterday, and whether you agree with that or not, it's what happened. It's how Pep saw the squad fit for this game. Now, obviously, like Bernardo Silva was the go-to option as the right winger on the bench, and maybe put Phil Foden there as a show of solidarity after he left him out quite recently. But this surely should be a little bit of an interesting sign for Mahrez. He's obviously come to Manchester City nowhere near the star that he was at Leicester. I think we'd all agree on that. He's come as a slightly smaller fish in a bigger pond as opposed to the big fish in the small pond, and he's got ahead of him now Sane and Sterling, who have really obviously kind of vindicated their positions as the first choice wingers. Mahrez is a fantastically gifted player, but he has a long way to go to be Manchester City's first choice winger. He has the ability, definitely, but there's still a lot to learn. And the fact that yesterday he wasn't on the bench, you could read into that, and you could say that maybe he's not quite where Guardiola wants him to be yet. It could also be the case that he just genuinely thought someone else was better for the job yesterday for whatever reason, or maybe Mahrez needed to sit one out after a poor week in training. Who knows what it could be? I'm only guessing here, but it's definitely an interesting side note to a problem. I say a problem, a situation that we'll probably see more of, given the fact that the squad depth, as I just mentioned, is only going to increase. Mahrez has to do a lot more, I think, in general to win Guardiola's trust. I think he has to show signs of intelligence a little bit more. He's got all the abilities I've just said, but sometimes his final ball and decision making lets him down a little bit. He goes for goal when he should pass, and he passes when he should go for goal. And actually, he tends just to go for goal regardless, really. He definitely hasn't got quite yet, and I mean this in a very kind way, the understanding how to play Guardiola's system. And I think maybe there might have been a bit of message there. Some people will say it's just rotation. To me, personally, and you can feel free to disagree in the comments below, I saw it as a message that he's not been quite right yet, personally, in Guardiola making that point. I could be wrong, just in my take on it. A fourth point, and this is a very simple point, but I think there is something to this. I think in general, we need a Silva on the pitch. Yesterday we started with Gundogan and Kevin De Bruyne. Both obviously very good footballers in their own right, both capable of creating problems for teams, both capable of creating goals and assists. But yesterday they looked ill-matched. Now we've got the situation where Manchester City's teams, when the very best Guardiola's teams, seem to revel in someone being in that kind of inside left or inside right channel, linking up with the fullback and the forward and the wingers. And yesterday we had two players who wanted to drift all over the pitch, and no one linking up in those small pockets of areas near the kind of corners of the penalty box. De Bruyne was kind of drifting deep a little bit, and Gundogan was kind of getting into the box or whatever, and there's big holes in the midfield. There's none of the usual shape and control that you associate with a Guardiola team. Now obviously the words at half-time made a difference to this, but it was only temporarily, if we're being honest. Other than a 10-minute spell, we did kind of sit back into tedium, if we're being brutal on that. It wasn't a good performance from the midfielders. And we need to do more than that. Now, obviously, David Silva is the master of controlling games and dictating tempos. That's why he's pretty much always in the team. And he, yesterday, was notable by his absence. City just didn't have the same control on the ball. I think the reason De Bruyne and David Silva work so well is you've got one who's too willing to control the game. You've got one who has that incredible final ball. Whereas I think Gundogan and De Bruyne both wanted to do the same thing yesterday. No one was willing to take responsibility and kind of be a little bit more cautious. It was a bit of a mess, essentially. Bernardo Silva brings that tenacity and that positional awareness that I think is on a better level than both of those two. I think he's more close to David Silva in his overall game. He's more close to David Silva in his understanding and his intelligence. His positional awareness, I think, is a little bit better than those two. I'm not to say the other two are bad, obviously not. Kevin De Bruyne is possibly our best player on form, but he still definitely needs a complementary partner, and yesterday he didn't have that. For me, going forward in big games, it's got to be a David Silva or Bernardo Silva in there. And the final point for me is a big one, and a contentious one, and it's complacency. I do worry sometimes that complacency could kick in with Manchester City. Now, Kompany made a big thing last season when they won the Premier League. He said, essentially, he's going to watch to see how the players respond, to see if there's any signs of the players dropping off standards that happened in previous years. And Guardiola said something very similar. And to me, games like yesterday, when we really did take our eye off the ball at times, we were largely poor. We weren't the same controlling beast that we should be after a bunch of very resounding victories. It wasn't really that good. And man, we got the 3 points. I'm not going to complain too much, but I always want to be honest with my assessment. And I thought yesterday there was some slight warning signs there. This wasn't a team at the very best. This wasn't a team fully focused. And this was a manager as well in Guardiola that looked frustrated. He even looked a little bit bored himself, sat on the bench. He would have known deep down that those players weren't focused on that game. They weren't focused on their performance. They didn't give it their all. I'm not saying it's for a lack of effort, but maybe their heads weren't quite where they should have been. Huddersfield were largely terrible. They looked a little bit lost in terms of the new system. The new manager obviously didn't really know what to to do in such a short period of time after taking over the reins. And there were a team there ripe for the taking. As soon as we kind of stepped up the game a little bit, we easily put 2 goals past them. There should have been a lot more of that, and we'd seen anywhere near the ruthlessness that we played against Liverpool in terms of the focus. This would have been an absolute landslide. Basically, sometimes there's warning signs that show that the teams, they have to be focused. And I think this is kind of game yesterday that Guardiola will look at and go, that wasn't quite right. We need to be better than that. We need to be more switched on that, because this is the kind of game that could easily, with a little bit of bad luck, go against us and see us drop more points. Now, having said that, I still think there's signs as well from other teams in the league. Spurs just about won, Liverpool just about won. The rest of the big teams at the moment aren't really blowing teams away. I think in general they're all kind of just battling for points and just about getting through games. I guess the good thing is we are still winning, but we have to make sure that this doesn't become a common denominator. We have to really put the pressure on Liverpool, and the more big wins we get, the more focused we are in general, the more pressure will be starting to be felt over at Anfield, and we have to make sure that we're at our very best at every game. Anyway guys, that's just my 5 takes on yesterday's game. What do you make of all those points raised? Some of them may be a little bit harsh, but they're honest in my personal opinion. Whether you agree with them or not, I don't mind. I really don't mind. That's what the comment section is below. Let me know what you thought of the game yesterday. Let me know what you made of those points I've discussed, and also go check out my match reaction for yesterday. What I say as ever, thank you to all these names scrolling down the side of the screen. These are my Patreons, people who help support this channel. You're all absolute heroes. Patreon.com/Esteemed Kompany if you want to get involved. Anyway, I've been Stephen. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you're new, give this video a like, and I'll see you tomorrow.